Hey there. Ready to decode some earnings reports?
Always up for a good earnings deep dive. What are we looking at today?
Today we're going deep on Tejas Networks. Fresh off a quarter with revenue numbers that make your head spin.
Oh, yeah. How are those numbers looking?
We're talking over 2,800 crore rupees.
Wow, that's
8 times what they did last year. 8 times.
8 times. Okay, so definitely not your average growth. That's huge. What's driving that kind of surge?
That's the million rupee question. Are they building a telecom empire or is this a flash in the pan? Let's find out.
All right, let's dive in. What's the story?
Well, the crux of it is this massive growth spurt is almost entirely fueled by one major deal. The BSNL 4G 5G rollout.
Ah, BSNL. That's a big one.
Hmm?
Okay, so how deeply involved are they with this rollout?
They've shipped a staggering 58,000 4G sites to BSNL just this quarter.
58,000. Wow, that's like blanketing a small country in high-speed internet infrastructure.
Exactly. So they're basically going all in on BSNL success.
Which, let's be honest, could be a brilliant move, but also pretty risky.
That's what has us intrigued. Incredibly exciting, but a tad nerve-wracking at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And it seems like Tejas knows it too. I've seen they've started branching out both in terms of geography and the industries they're serving.
Yeah, we noticed that too. What do you think about those moves?
Smart, definitely smart. We're seeing them in utilities, railways, even snagged a network modernization project with a U.S. operator.
Right. Venturing beyond the usual telecom territory.
Exactly. Seems like they're trying to build a more stable, well, foundation for the future.
Building a safety net while aiming for those home runs. I like it.
And you know what else caught my eye? How they're doing it all. That asset-light manufacturing model.
Oh, yeah, definitely interesting. For those who aren't familiar, what does that mean in this context?
So instead of dropping a ton of cash on building massive factories, they're partnering with these electronics manufacturing giants. Gives them flexibility and the ability to scale up production really quickly to meet that demand.
So they're not just building tech, they're building a smart business model too.
Exactly. But we've got to circle back to that elephant in the room, BSNL.
Right, back to that high-stakes partnership. How worried should we be about Tejas putting so many eggs in that basket?
It's a valid concern, for sure. BSNL has, well, a history. Ups and downs, you could say.
Definitely had their fair share of challenges.
Delays, funding hiccups, even questions about the tech they're using. If BSNL stumbles, Tejas is going to feel it.
No doubt about it. Talk about a high-stakes partnership. But hey, BSNL isn't the entire story, right? Tejas seems to be making moves elsewhere too, like that U.S. project you mentioned.
Right, right. That U.S. project is a big deal. Securing a deal in a mature market like that shows their tech can compete on a global scale.
Definitely a feather in their cap.
And they're not done yet. They're also eyeing those emerging markets, Southeast Asia, Africa, where 4G's still got room to grow.
So playing both sides of the field, established markets, and the next wave of connectivity. Hedging their bets while still swinging for the fences. I like their style.
Me too. But speaking of swinging for the fences, we've got to talk about this other part of the Tejas story, Sankhya Labs.
Ah, yes, Sankhya Labs,
Yeah.
the satellite and chip design gurus. I'll admit, when I first read about them, I was like, what does this have to do with telecom equipment?
Right. It's an interesting move, for sure.
So what's the deal with that? Fill us in.
They're developing some seriously cutting-edge satellite technology, and they just locked down a big contract with the Indian government.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of contract?
Equipping fishing vessels with two-way satellite communication transponders.
Satellite tech for, wait, fishing vessels? That's a niche I never would have seen coming.
I know, right? But it really highlights their ability to innovate and find applications for their tech in some unexpected places.
Definitely not your typical telecom application. What's the advantage there?
Well, for one, it aligns perfectly with the Indian government's whole Make in India initiative.
Ah, so they're tapping into a new market, showcasing their technological prowess, and scoring points on the national stage all at the same time. Talk about a strategic win-win.
Exactly. But let's be real, the telecom equipment market, that's a tough room. Giants everywhere.
Cutthroat is an understatement. So what exactly gives a company like Tejas a fighting chance against those global heavyweights?
Integration. They're all about it.
Integration. Okay. What does that mean in this case?
Creating equipment that can handle a bunch of different network functions all in one box.
Interesting. So kind of a one-stop shop approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a game changer for operators because it simplifies their networks and, this is key, reduces costs. Imagine managing one device instead of 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah. Less headache, less space, less money spent. Makes a ton of sense.
Right. And this approach, it's not just about convenience, it's about efficiency and cost effectiveness. Huge selling points in telecom.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
you've got a good approach, but can they actually pull it off?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? They're really leaning into that whole make in India thing,
Hmm.
partnering with companies like Renesas was one I saw to develop those specialized semiconductors, but right there in India.
So they're not just assembling the parts, they're getting involved with the core tech itself.
Yeah, exactly. And you remember those global semiconductor shortages a while back, the ones that really threw the whole tech world into a tailspin.
Oh yeah, definitely. Couldn't get your hands on anything for a while there.
Right. Well, it seems like Tejas saw that coming. By building up those domestic supply chains, they've created a buffer, against those kinds of disruptions.
Smart move. Like they're playing chess while everyone else is scrambling around with checkers.
Totally. But even with all the strategic moves and smart planning, there's always a little, risk involved.
Of course. Always.
Mm.
What are some of the headwinds you see them facing right now?
Well, first off, the telecom world. It's brutal out there.
Yeah, not known for being a walk in the park.
Right. They're up against these global giants, deep pockets, decades of experience, the whole 9 yards. And on top of that, you've got new players popping up all the time,
Yeah.
hungry for their piece of the pie.
So even with a hot streak, they can't afford to get complacent.
Not even a little.
There you go.
Plus, there's that whole reliance on BSNL thing, looming over everything.
Right, that double-edged sword.
If that BSNL rollout hits a snag, or if their financial situation goes south, it'll ripple. Tejas is going to feel that.
It's a risk they're taking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What else? Any other potential storms you're watching out for?
Well, the global economy has been a bit shaky lately, right? Inflation is stubborn, interest rates are climbing, not to mention all the geopolitical tension. It's just, it's a lot.
And all of that uncertainty trickles down, right?
Absolutely. Could lead to telecom operators tightening their belts, delaying investments, just, playing it safe.
So even if Tejas has the best tech, a solid plan, all those external factors could still throw a wrench in the works.
It's the reality, yeah. Every company has to deal with it to some extent. But speaking of reality, remember those stellar earnings we talked about? Those number?
Oh yeah, definitely haven't forgotten those. Record-breaking stuff.
Well, those numbers raised a few eyebrows, particularly among analysts. A lot of questions about their profit margins.
Profit margins.
Yeah.
Seemed like landing a mega deal like that BSNL contract would mean bigger profits.
You'd think so, right? But here's the thing, securing a contract that massive often means offering some pretty competitive pricing, which can, eat into your profit margins.
So even though they're selling a ton of equipment, the actual profit on each piece might not be as high as it appears at first glance.
Yeah, exactly. And Tejas knows it. They acknowledged it during their earnings call.
So how'd they address it?
By emphasizing their long-term vision, they kept saying, we're not just chasing the quick win, we're building something that lasts.
So playing the long game. Makes sense.
Right. But investing in R&D, building up that manufacturing capacity, going global, all that takes time and, upfront investment. They're playing the long game for sure.
So where does that leave them in terms of, I don't know, staying competitive? What are they doing to make sure they're ahead of the curve?
Well, that's where their focus on research and development becomes really crucial. They're pouring resources into cutting-edge stuff. Open RAN, for example, network slicing, really interesting stuff.
Okay, before we go any further, I think it might be helpful to define those terms. Open RAN, network slicing? I'll be honest, they sound a little sci-fi to me.
Huh. Yeah, they're definitely buzzwords, but they're shaping the future of telecom, I'll tell you that. Open RAN is all about creating more flexible and interoperable networks.
Okay, so instead of being locked into a single supplier, you've got more options.
Exactly. Imagine a world where telecom operators can mix and match equipment from different vendors, kind of like building a custom computer.
Interesting. So more flexibility, more control. I like it. And network slicing, what's that all about?
Network slicing. Okay, imagine you've got one physical network, right? Now imagine you can divide that up into multiple virtual networks.
Okay, multiple networks on one piece of hardware.
Got it. And each one is tailored for a specific purpose.
So like you could have one slice for video streaming, another one optimized for online gaming, and another one for like critical infrastructure stuff all running on the same hardware.
Exactly. That kind of flexibility and efficiency. That's what makes 5G so transformative. And Tejas is right there, leading the charge, developing the tech to make it all happen.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from revenue to risk to cutting-edge tech, and I think it's really starting to paint a bigger picture. Tejas isn't just about selling equipment. It's about shaping the future of how we connect, how we communicate. This is big picture stuff.
It really is, and I think that's why their story is so compelling, even for someone who's not a telecom expert.
Right. So with all that in mind, let's bring it back to the listener for a second. Why should they care about Tejas Networks? What does it all mean?
Tejas. They're a microcosm, I think. A microcosm of the incredible changes that are happening in the telecom industry. They're dealing with the same forces that are shaping the future of, well, everything. How we work, how we live, how we connect with each other, how we play.
Everything's connected these days.
Right. And Tejas is right in the middle of it. 5G, the push for local manufacturing, the constant need for faster, more flexible networks, they're dealing with it all.
It's like looking at a company in a time capsule. You know, this snapshot of a pivotal moment in tech history.
Totally. Ambitious, innovative, but yeah, walking that tightrope for sure.
Because so much of their future depends on things they can't control, right?
Exactly. The global economy, BSNL, even just the speed of tech innovation.
It's a wild ride, and they're holding on tight.
Makes you wonder, can they keep this momentum up? Can they actually become a major player globally? Or is that reliance on BSNL going to hold them back?
Million-dollar questions, all of them. But hey, regardless of what the future holds for Tejas, I think their story offers some pretty valuable lessons.
Oh, for sure. For anyone trying to wrap their head around, the future of connectivity, it's all there in what they're doing.
It's like a case study, right? And how to navigate a world that's changing so fast it'll make your head spin.
Exactly. They've got these big, ambitious goals, but they can't lose sight of the fundamentals. Fulfilling those contracts, managing costs, staying ahead of the curve, it's a lot.
A balancing act, for sure. But that's what makes it so interesting to watch.
Absolutely. It's about having the foresight, right, to see those challenges coming, the agility to pivot when you need to, and the courage to keep pushing those boundaries. Can't forget that.
Couldn't said it better myself. So there you have it, folks. Tejas Networks, a company riding the wave of India's telecom boom, navigating the ups and downs of a global market that just won't quit. They've got the drive, the tech, and their fair share of hurdles to overcome. It's a story that's still being written, and you can bet we'll be following every chapter.
Until next time, everyone, keep those questions coming, keep digging deeper, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Catch you then.